Hey everybody, I'm Madalyn Sklar, host of the Social ROI Chat. I'm here with our awesome guest today, Rachel Miller. Hey Rachel, how are you doing?
Hey there, good to see you.
Yeah, we had an awesome Twitter chat today. I think all of our fingers need a rest now because that was a lot of speed
Smoking.
typing. That was a lot of fun. You shared so much great, helpful tips and insights talking about influencer marketing, which is a hot topic these days. Before we dive in, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Rachel Miller, influencer marketing manager at TopRank Marketing. TopRank is an integrated marketing agency. We do a lot of influencer marketing campaigns, specifically in the B2B tech space. So if you're interested, happy to talk more with you about that.
Awesome. And you've been on social media a long time. I always see you everywhere. How long have you been using Twitter?
Long time. I'd have to check my bio, but I think 2009, I was an early
Okay.
adopter. Yeah, I jumped on it.
Awesome.
I really
Awesome.
like being concise. So when Twitter came out, I was like, this is my jam.
Me too, because I started blogging very early on. I was an early adopter to blogging and I just did short blogs. I like short, concise, no fluff, to the point. So when Twitter came out, I'm like, this is the place for me. So I totally can relate to that. Yeah. And what do you think of the 280 from the 140 to the 280s? How do you feel about that?
At first, I was like, no, they're going to ruin it. But now, sometimes, I mean, I still feel that I keep, because out of habit, you just kind of think in
Uh-huh.
short sentences. But I really do like being able to add a line break every once in a while. I think you can, especially when you're reading the feed, it really makes your thoughts pop. And of course, the extra emojis, there's a lot of fun can be had. But I'm liking it. I've definitely changed my tune. I'm more on board now.
Yeah, me too. I was very against it when they were first talking about it. I was even on Social Media Examiner's Friday afternoon or morning program and talking about Twitter. And when it was just a rumor that it may be coming, and I was real against it. I was like, no, this is, you know, Twitter is Twitter because of the 140. And Mike Stelzner was like, but this can be great. And I was like, no, it's not. And then it came out and I was like, okay, let me play around with it. And I fell in love with that. It took a little time. But the great thing is that people don't go crazy with it. Could you imagine if like all day you went through Twitter and it was all 280 characters in every tweet? Oh,
Yeah, I'm super stoked that people are still being pretty respectful with their character use. Because
yeah.
yeah, it would be a little bit too much, I think, because it goes so fast. Like you don't really, I mean, you can glance at a few tweets and absorb the
Yeah.
conversation, but having to then read, all the like, nah.
Yeah,
But
like today's Twitter chat, moving at hyper speed. Could you imagine if it was all long format tweets? Oh my God. That would be like a whole different ball game. I think, that was my biggest concern going from 140 to 280. I was like, wait a minute. How is this going to impact Twitter chats? Because I host 2 Twitter chats. I participate in a lot of them. I know you're always participating. I see you on chats all the time. I can't even imagine like if everybody was doing 280 character tweets. Oh,
yeah, I think in many ways it's helped Twitter chats because now instead of doing like, the A1A,
uh-huh.
A1B, you can actually put all your thoughts into one tweet. And still you can get a little verbose. I mean, I know today I had to break some apart because I was like, I got more to say.
Right.
But it is kind of nice. We don't have to like piecemeal it out like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a great point. We had a great topic today on the chat. The topic was making the most of influencer marketing. And you're like quite the expert in this area. And you shared some amazing insights. So we're going to go through some of the questions we had on the chat so we can get your expanded version. I used to say going beyond the 140 characters, but now we're at 280. So I guess I can say going beyond the 280 character of Twitter. So let's jump into question number 1. What are the characteristics of a successful influencer marketing campaign?
Sure. So I think the first thing you need to consider is what are your ultimate goals? Because it sounds really cool, like we're working on an influencer marketing campaign. Everyone's like, It's like they're going off to the moon, like they're so stoked. But if you don't have your clear objective and what you actually want to accomplish, you can easily go awry. And then halfway through, everyone's like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we spending this money on? So yeah, knowing exactly what you want to achieve. So whether you're driving conversion to a form or specific page on your site, or maybe it's just an awareness campaign. You're like, we have this new product or service coming out. We just want people to know about it. So knowing exactly what you're working towards is key. And then secondly, finding the right people, because there's a lot of people on social in every little nook and cranny. But finding people who are already out there talking about things that are important to you and your brand. So there's natural harmony, jump into their conversations and make sure it's a best fit. And I think I mentioned during the chat that it's not only important to find the right people to collaborate with, it's also important to choose the right content format. Because if you're trying to do a video campaign and the person that you're collaborating with has never been on camera before, they're not going to come across as very, very authentic, because they're going to be nervous, they're going to clam up, and it's going to be a really disjointed campaign. So
yeah, so you really got to vet your influencers prior to starting a campaign. And it used to be, it was all about the big celebrity type influencers, all the big names. But these days we're really seeing more of the micro influencer, right? Like you don't have to be a superstar to necessarily be an influencer.
No, not at all. And I think these more micro influencers, as we've kind of dubbed them, they're more niche subject matter experts. So they know they can go really deep on a certain topic, and they have a hyper engaged audience, which is most important. So a lot of these guys who are generalists, they're still fantastic, and they definitely know what they're talking about, but they have a much smaller engagement rate with their audience. So perhaps they have 100,000 followers, but maybe only 1% are actually engaged. But you can go down to somebody who has 10,000, but perhaps they have like a 75% engagement rate. And that's a significant difference when you're trying to drive awareness for your campaign.
Absolutely. And just in keeping with this conversation, kind of digging in a little bit deeper, how do you go find these influencers? I mean, is it mostly word of mouth? Is it just doing a bunch of research? With what, your experience with all of this, what are the best ways for people to find those influencers?
So there's a lot of ways to find people. Hashtags, as we talked about also during the chat today, are a great way to find people talking about your areas of interest. There are a lot of tools that can help expedite, like Tracker, Analytica can help narrow down your search for people who are sharing content or talking about a certain topic. Specifically, if you want to stay in a particular region, like perhaps you're only looking for someone talking about blockchain in New York. A tool can definitely help you go and kind of really narrow your search. I use Google a lot, just seeing who's writing about what, and BuzzSumo. If I find a really cool article, I'll drop it into BuzzSumo and see who shared it recently and who's talking about it, like who's stimulating conversation about that topic.
I love BuzzSumo. I think that is such a great tool, and there's a free version and a paid version. You can do quite a bit with the free version. Great advice you're sharing. I love this. So going back to the Twitter chat, question number 2, what sort of questions should marketers be asking when auditing their influencer marketing campaign?
Sure. Again, I'm a real stickler for goals. So once you start doing any sort of marketing campaign, regularly circle back and like, is this achieving my goals? Do I need to pivot? Am I sharing it on the right platform? Do I need to change the title of this post? And then are the influencers who have contributed, are they sharing it? Because that's one thing to find the right people, but if they're not actively sharing the content, are they truly performing? And I know I got a lot of questions about the trackable links. That was a great question that you asked in the chat. So I think a lot of people are wanting a little bit more information about that. Whenever we produce a campaign at TopRank, we give each influencer a unique code, whether it's Google shortener or Bitly or a click to tweet. So we can not only see the overall success of a campaign, but who particularly contributed the most. And that goes back to the audience. So if someone's sharing it, they may have shared it 50 times, but only 2 people clicked. Or there's somebody who shared it 3 times and it was clicked 50 times. So you're like, okay, wow, this person's awesome. They have the best audience. So it's important to like track your KPIs consistently and then don't be afraid to pivot. And it could be as simple as re-SEOing something or sharing it on a different network.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're doing this tracking, what metrics should you be looking out for in this tracking?
Well, it depends if it's what your goals are. Goals.
Love that.
Specifically, I like to know what my influencers are doing. So where they're sharing, how many times, and then the engagement that they're getting. So we definitely track all of that, the comments, the retweets, the links. So if we're driving someone to a page, how many clicked, how many stayed, did they, fill out the form? So all of the metrics that are specific to your campaign. And again, that comes back to your goals, but definitely paying attention to how the influencers are performing. Because they may have a great audience and they look really good on paper, but if they're not performing for you and your brand, it might not be a best fit.
Exactly. It's so important. I love talking about hashtags, and I love question number 5 on the chat. How can brands use hashtags to monitor their influencer marketing?
So hashtags are fantastic. I think that's one of the best things that has come out of Twitter is the hashtag. And, you can get crazy, and I know for a while everybody was putting funny hashtags into all of their comments, and that looks great, especially to convey a mood, but that's kind of hard to monitor. So if you're going to use a hashtag, definitely find a unique one. Don't hashjack and grab somebody else's, because that will muddy your data, as well as it's just confusing for your audience. So selecting one that isn't in use, it makes sense for your brand or the campaign, and then make sure you educate everybody to use it. So it's not just your influencers, but your employees, and your current customers and prospects, so you can really get a holistic view of who's using your hashtag. And it's much easier to monitor hashtags than general social campaigns. I don't know if you've, there are tools out there. Hash tracking is a fantastic one.
Yes.
It allows you to segment really easily. I know for Twitter chats, when that tool came out, I was like, woohoo! So much easier now. And then Zoom is another great one for monitoring, not just the hashtag, but the mentions that coincide with it. So it's a really great way to segment subsets of your campaign and see how everything's performing.
Yeah, hash tracking is a great one. I'm using Social Alert. Are you familiar with that one?
I know it, but I have not used it personally.
Yeah, I've been using that one. I really like it a lot. There are a lot of different ones out there now. I always tell people experiment, try them out, see which one you like best. I mean, they're all basically getting all the information, the same information that is gathering for you. Yeah, love hashtags. Love talking about hashtags. That was such a great question. And when you were talking about like researching a hashtag, how do you recommend doing that when you are, you're going to do hashtags, but you want to make sure you're not using something someone else is using. So how do you go about researching?
So first, I always just go to the source. I go to Twitter and I'll type in what I want it to be. And sometimes you'll get lucky and no one has ever used it, or you'll see tweets from, 2-3 years ago, and that's usually pretty safe. If it's one that's been used quite frequently, I tend to stay away from that. If you do find one that you want, but it's in use, then I go to like Hashtagify, and then it'll auto-generate some, not suggestions, but ones that are being used around it, and then you can kind of explore and you can go down a rabbit hole, but just going to Twitter is usually the easiest way to see if anyone's out there using it.
Yeah, definitely. So what are your predictions for influencer marketing in this new year in 2018?
So I'm really happy that we're kind of going down the micro path, because when I first started a few years ago in influencer marketing, it was all about the numbers. Everyone was like, who's got the biggest reach? And now I really appreciate that brands are being respectful and going after people who have a healthy social footprint, but are definitely truer to their expertise. I've been working on a lot of video and podcast campaigns, which I really like. I think that's a great use of influencers because it's a lot more intimate. You get to see them, either hear their voice in your ear or you see them speak to you. And it really elevates that, that peer-to-peer message that is really the heart of influencer marketing. So those I'm I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think we're just barely scratching the surface. I think influencer marketing is definitely, it's here to stay, and it's really cool to see all the tools evolving. And it's definitely an exciting space to be in.
I totally agree. I think it really is. I think we're going to see more and more people break out as micro influencers. And I mean, it's really just, going for the niches, right? I mean, you were saying earlier, like the ones that are all general, yeah, sure, they may have 100,000 followers, but only 1% or 10%, just a small number. Whereas a much smaller, more niche influencer doesn't have necessarily the big numbers, but they've got the reach.
Yeah, they have that rapport that really drives action, and that's what you want. You want people to hear your message and get excited and do something.
Exactly. This has been so great, Rachel. I really appreciate you being on the chat today. You shared such great information. For anybody watching, if you were not on the chat with us today, please be sure to go to Twitter website or on your phone and type in #pound social ROI and read through the tweets. It was really good. We'll have a recap up on Managed Flitter's site in the next few days. We'll also have a Twitter Moments put together. I'll be sure to tag you on all of those, Rachel. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. This was an awesome experience. I really appreciate it.
Oh, great. That is awesome. Thank you so much. And for everybody watching, we'll be back next week with another chat and another great guest. And until then, I'll just see you out on Twitter like I always do. So take care. Bye, everybody.